Hello and welcome everyone. SNS Bills Talk episode 4, second one that'll be on Spotify and iPod podcast. So welcome in everybody. Lawrence Foster along with Dr. Duncan. Welcome in to Bills Talk.
Go Bills.
Go Bills. So last week we talked about Cook a lot. We're less than 2 weeks out from the draft, kind of the last big thing in the NFL if you don't count the schedule release. So Dr. Dung and I have a history of doing mock drafts. We've done it for newspapers. We've done it for fun. We've done it for our TikTok channel. But this time we're doing it for you, our loyal listeners at SNS Bills Talk. So we went through, we did a mock draft throughout the week. We alternated picks. We allowed trades, no matter with who it was, unbeknownst to some. And then so I took the odd numbered teams. Dr. Dungan took the even numbered teams. Thoughts on doing the mock? Like any struggles you had doing it, or
I mean,
thoughts on doing it?
as you said, we've been doing this since college. I mean, that's I think really like when this sort of love of the draft, at least for me, anyways, sort of came as when we were roommates in college, and this was just a really fun thing to do. I mean, granted, you and I probably don't spend nearly as much time looking at the players as we do. Sorry, we spent more time than we do now looking at players, but I still really enjoy it. I mean, granted, it is hard, right? Like to know exactly, who needs what. That does take a little work. But then also there's certain players that, because I don't watch a ton of college football, I'm just like, I know they say he's good. And so I guess I'll trust their judgment. I don't really know. Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that's where this is like a play smarter, type the Google act like I used to do. So I know I personally I take like 5 or 6 sites that I have been like long-standing draft, I guess you could call them. I take their mock draft and kind of like make an first round. Like this is the average spot they're taking. That's how I kind of, like you said, you can't watch. I watch more college football than you, but I don't watch it in terms of, ooh, this guy's going to get drafted. I just watch it for fun. So it makes sense that we take what everyone else did. We put our own little twist on it. We know the NFL teams pretty well because that is a sport we watch every game that we can. So without further ado, our 2025 mock draft is going to commence. The Tennessee Titans are on the clock. That would be yours truly with that pick. I don't think there's much question about what it's going to be. Some people have said, oh, maybe they're throwing a smoke screen. Why do you need to have a smoke screen at number 1? Nobody can get in front of you. So
sure.
The pick is in. If I had the noise, I'd do it. We have Cam Ward going to the Tennessee Titans, the Miami product. I don't care about him sitting out the last part of the bowl game. By all accounts, it was a coach and him talked it through, so it was like a planned type thing. So you see his stats for those who are just listening without watching. 89 quarterback rating, 36 total touchdowns, 4,100 passing yards. So Cam Ward hopefully answers the Titans quarterback question better than Will Mayo Levis did. So Titans on the board.
Yeah, this is probably one of the more underwhelming quarterback drafts for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't more. Granted, he's been around a while, but like it wasn't until he got to Miami that he really became a household name.
Yeah, and I think we'll look back on this and probably say, yeah, some of they were just drafted there because they're a quarterback and teams need it. Quarterbacks are always pushed up the board, so I think you're right there. But underwhelming. So Titans number 1, no trade, no shenanigans. Cam Ward. Moving on, you got the Browns pick. What were your thoughts there with that?
Well, this also I felt was pretty easy. 1-2, I think is going to be pretty quick in the actual draft. And so with the second overall pick, the Browns pick, Abdul Carter.
There we go.
I think, especially with them signing Myles Garrett, their offense needs so much help and there's not one player available that's going to all of a sudden turn the offense around. The only thing that'll turn the offense around is if Deshaun Watson returns to his former self. But I think getting a guy like Abdul Carter coupled with Myles Garrett and that just making their defense absolutely filthy, I think that's a way where the Browns could sneakily win games, right? With just smothering defense. And so, plus, I think overall Carter's probably is the best player available. I mean, everyone obviously compares him to Micah Parsons, but time will tell.
Yeah, Cleveland would take that 100%. And the next thing, like you already mentioned for Carter, is he doesn't have, like, oftentimes this defensive end coming in at this point is expected to be the savior on defense.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to be that. Like you said, they re-signed Garrett to the massive contract. So he can come in. He's going to get lots of one-on-one opportunities. So I think I would put odds on him being the defensive rookie of the year pretty high if he stays healthy. So 1-2 pretty much seems like that's how it'll go unless Cleveland throws a curveball and goes quarterback. That leaves us with the Giants, who desperately need a quarterback, but I think with the two veterans they signed and the hot seat Brian Daboll's under, I don't think he's going to draft a quarterback here. He's going to try to help his team win now. He just saw what the Eagles did defensively to win a Super Bowl. So he's going to kind of try to follow that mode. He goes to the defensive line. He goes big Mason Graham from Michigan, the G-Men. I love the gut that you see there for Mason Graham. His stats, he's not somebody who the stats are going to pop out, but he does what they're going to need him to do. He eats up blocks. He can collapse the middle and let others around him be better. I mean, the Giants already have two pretty good pass rushers. So what, Thibodeau and Banks.
Mm-hmm.
So they need somebody up the middle. If Daboll thinks he's going past this year, I could see them going Shadur Sanders. They're all in on winning this year to save their skin.
Yeah, no, I do like this pick because again, I don't think that there's a quarterback out there that's going to save the Giants. I mean, in all reality, like next year truly is what it is. I think everyone's trying to suck for Manning. And so if that's the case, well, then build up your team. And then when he's available, go get him.
Yeah. That's already on for next year's draft. We haven't even got through this one, but yeah, Arch Manning there. So that leads us to the Patriots, or is it?
Or does it? Because for me, I had a trade. I had the Jets trading up to 4. Granted, the Jets were at 7, so it's not a huge jump, but it is in the division. So I imagine the Jets would probably have to give up a second or a third round pick. But I don't think the Jets love their quarterback situation. And I do think they love the intrigue and the flash of Prime Jr. So I had the Jets trading up to draft Shadur Sanders. I think they're a team that, they could use a piece on defense. They could use a piece on offense. But overall, I think, their team, they're built not to win now, but I think they're looking for the future. Get a year or so out of why am I blanking? There you go. Justin Fields. Plus, this team fits exactly what Shadur is used to. A garbage offensive line with a couple of weapons on the perimeter. So I think if Sanders makes it here, I don't think the Patriots are gonna reach and take somebody. I think Vrabel's too smart for that, and he's going to want to accrue draft capital. And so this is a spot where I think we could see our first trade. So Jets taking Sanders at 4.
And Glenn has the luxury, unlike his counterpart Daboll, of in his first year of his tenure. So you would think he has leeway to, like you said, build this way, have somebody like Sanders come in. And it's not like the Jets are barren of talent either. They just need somebody to help put it together. So Shadur and Dion, Coach Prime, go into the Big Apple. with our first trade of many teaser to come in our mock draft. So that leaves us with the Jaguars, who will not be trading. They will stay put. They kind of cleared ship again. The only thing that keeps staying the same is Trevor Lawrence. That's a topic for another day. The Jaguars need help all over the place, but I think first and foremost they need to protect their franchise quarterback, who they paid a ton of money to, and in that sense, they still have the best offensive lineman available. They decide to go with the LSU product, Will Campbell. So Will Campbell to the Jags to help keep Trevor Lawrence up, to help the running game get going, and hopefully get out of the basement of the AFC South.
Yeah, hopefully. But I mean, don't get me wrong. I think this is the smart pick and probably the pick that the Jags will make. But they need so much more help that it's, yeah.
And they tried to, think about all the money they spent last year in free agency and how that turned out for them.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't they glad they gave Gabe Davis that contract?
Well, I think it comes down to, Trevor Lawrence is good, but he's not the savior, right? Everyone wants to tout him, or they wanted to tout him as the next coming, but, he's entering year 4, and you've really only seen regression out of him.
And that's the problem with mid. Teams don't want to take that step back? All right, this guy's not good enough. We can win some games, right? So that's the real tough. I'd rather be really crappy than be in the middle, because then you pay people like Dak Prescott and you pay people like Trevor Lawrence, who can't elevate people around them like Josh Allen's of the world can. So I think they're trying to make the best of a crappy situation. But the Jaguars with the offensive lineman, it's not sexy, but it can help games. That leads us to the Raiders, or
well, the Raiders were going to pick, but then the Patriots were like, you know what? There's a guy here that we wanted, didn't think he was going to fall this far. And so the Patriots move up one spot from trading with the Jets. So they now trade the 7th pick to the Raiders for the 6th pick, and that the Patriots taking Travis Hunter. Now, here's the thing. He's really good at 2 things. I think he's better at receiver than he is at corner. I mean, he's a pretty good corner, but I would argue that the competition he played against isn't nearly as good as what it was in the Big Ten or the SEC. But I watched him play 4 or 5 games at receiver, and he made some absolutely crazy catches. So I think, and that's exactly what the Patriots need. So obviously he'll likely get snaps at both positions. I think the Pats will use him more as a receiver. So I got the Patriots picking Travis Hunter at 6.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny he's going to a team that probably is the last one to have used a wide receiver somewhat extensively, a defensive back, if you remember who that is.
Troy something.
You got the first name, Troy Brown.
Troy Brown.
It wasn't a product of, he wanted to do. It was a product, we have no more cornerbacks left. Let's see how he does. And he got interceptions. He played decently. I'm pretty sure he intercepted a Bills quarterback. Of course he did.
As though that was hard.
Right, but yeah, so I mean, he goes to a team that knows the Vrabel. You're smart though of saying wide receiver, and you don't want to overwhelm him for he never looked tired. But it's aspect of the NFL game that's way college.
Yeah, no, he's not going to be able to start on both sides. He'll start on one side and a sprinkle of the other at first, but I think as he finds out trying to cover NFL caliber DBs play after play, and then going against them and having to break the press and get open, it's going to be just too exhausting.
He is one of the most intriguing prospects in a long time, though. If he was strictly a wide receiver or a corner, he'd probably still be a top 10 pick, even without the versatility he has. So you wonder if it's he needs to go to a place like Ohtani, right? Who until Johnny, whoever let players pitch and play at the plate. Then he went to the right team that said, "Hey, we're going to let you do it." So I hope I hope the Patriots let him eventually get into maybe 40% snaps on the other side of the ball, just for the pure like uniqueness of it. But
Yeah, see, I could see him playing like the nickel corner, right?
yeah, but the Patriots active early with 2 trades, courtesy of Dr. Dungan, moving back with the hated Jets, then moving up with the Raiders to take Travis Hunter, somebody they might have taken at 4 anyway, so they get extra picks in the process. That moves us to the Jets, who are now at 7 after all the wheeling and dealing. They will not be leaving
The
this
Raiders.
spot. Or I say the Raiders. Yes, the Raiders will be doing that. I wrote it down wrong. The Raiders have been attached to one person quite frequently throughout the draft. It makes sense with who their new coach is, the way he ran things in Seattle, pun intended there. So the Raiders are going to be going with what is regarded as the best running back in the draft. That would be, of course, Ashton Genty. 2,600 yards, 29 touchdowns, 374 carries. He's memeable. He stands in the backfield like Michael Myers, waiting to attack his prey. I don't think there's big of a drop off between him and Amari and Hampton personally, but I love Genty. I'll be interested to see how he translates to the NFL.
I mean, I saw some pictures of. I mean, obviously these dudes are all really fit, and just because a dude is ripped and has a six pack and looks like a monster, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But boy, he looks every bit of the part. So I don't know too much about the Raiders' offensive line, but you're right. He'll definitely go to a place where they will use him. And so whether or not he's successful or not, that'll all be. He will dictate all of that because he's going to get carries. That's for sure.
Yeah, and Pete Carroll will run him, and he'll get his first contract and be all good. So the Raiders do go sexy with the best running back on the board, with Ashton Genty after wheeling and dealing. We land up at number 8 now with the Panthers on the board.
Yeah.
Where do you see them going?
Well, I was between 2 players, right? So they need help on offense a little bit, but also with losing Brian Burns, they need a pass rusher. So I was between Tyler Warren and Jalen Walker, and ultimately I think they go to Jalen Walker. He's a freak athlete. I think he's could really help them just put pressure on opposing quarterbacks. For which, if they can, if that helps them get the defense off the field, the offense back on the field, that could indirectly help Bryce Young. So I went with defense instead of offense.
And it's kind of nice for them that Bryce kind of took the step forward after his benching, where they don't have to think about quarterback here.
Mm-hmm.
He's on the upswing. And we talked about earlier the Giants having their tandem pass rushers because the Panthers traded Burns to them. So they lacked that last year. Their defense was still pretty solid, even without a good pass rusher. So pretty good pick here you got for the Panthers at number 8 with Jalen Walker. Philadelphia said that they cannot take another Georgia player in at least this one. So we'll see what the Eagles do later on. We're almost out of the top 10. We got the Saints on the board now. They had breaking news this week of a potential season-altering injury for Derek Carr. Shadur is already off the board. So at this point, there's not really a quarterback you would want to spend the number 9 draft pick on. I think they're a possibility to move up, which may help a team like the Patriots get more, because there's going to be maybe a couple more teams looking to trade up for a quarterback. But helping their quarterback, whoever it may be, is priority. And that means they're going to go to the tight end position and Tyler Warren, the one-year wonder out of Penn State.
Yeah, man. But boy, what a year he had again, he was another guy that I watched a couple of times, and the catches he made, just how often they went to him, and you knew the ball was going his way, and you still couldn't stop it.
Yeah, and like you said, it was 1 year wonder, but it was a heck of a season. 104 receptions, 1,200, over 1,200 yards, and 8 total touchdowns for a Penn State team that made the college football playoff. And you think of the Saints' glory days, I think of Jeremy Shockey, Jeremy Graham. The tight end position was really important. So the Saints kind of try to recreate a little bit of that, no matter who their quarterback is. So Tyler Warren to the Saints, which brings us to the 10th pick. The Chicago Bears, who drafted last year number 1, Caleb Williams, of course. They've done a lot to try to help him. Where do you see them going at number 10?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people have them taking a running back here, that Henders.
Yeah. Hendershot.
Yeah, whatever his name is. I don't. I think their offense is fine. Caleb Williams likely only going to get better with an up and down rookie year. I think he finished pretty good. So I think with this, they go defense, and so I have them taking Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. And the reason why I selected him is because I was reading some stuff over the week, and everyone seems to be raving about this guy. That they say he's been one of the players that's been climbing up people's board just because of how athletic he is. They say he has a great personality, really productive in the SEC. So Walter Nolan to the Bears at 10.
Yeah, and I think playing in the SEC and the Big Ten are I give those players a boost over everyone else really at this point with how loaded each conference is right now. So, and like you said, the Bears defense, they have lots of pieces. They got 2 good linebackers. They're Johnson, the cornerback they just extended last year. And that Sweat, they traded for Sweat 2 years ago from the Commanders, and look what he's done. So he'll have just like Abdul Carter isn't going to be expected to carry everything. He's going to be right next to Sweat, who he'll command the attention, which will allow Nolan to kind of flourish with less attention on him.
Yeah, no, I mean, granted, there's no chance that the Bills get him because it's, most people have him going in the top 15, but he's the guy that I would love if we were able to get him for us.
Oh, yeah, I would 100% be happy with that as well. So Walter Nolan to the Bears, closing on our top 10. We got more trades coming, folks. Don't go anywhere. But we have the Niners now, a team that drastically underachieved last year, thanks in large part to injury, but also I think Brock Purdy kind of fell back to earth a little bit when he didn't have all his superstars around him or playing at a superstar level. I think there's a reason he hasn't signed an extension yet, but that's another topic for another day. The Niners have lots of places they could go here. But when I think of the Niners, I think of their running game. I think of their offensive line and letting things happen. And their offensive line is getting old and is getting injury prone.
Yep.
So with that in mind, they go with Armand Membou.
Ooh, Membou. That's a fun name.
It is a fun name. And a fun player as well. Only 3 career sacks allowed for playing with Mizzou. He had over an 85 in both pass and run blocking grades from PFF. So Armand Membou is going to help that aging and injury-riddled Niner offensive line and hopefully help keep some of their other skill positions healthy as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Armand Membou to the Niners. The offensive line, not much to really analyze there. We're not savants. But that leads us to, how about them Cowboys? Dr. Dungan on the clock.
So one thing Jerry Jones doesn't like is he doesn't like to be made to look stupid. And thus far, he's done a really good job at looking stupid. And so I think Jerry Jones, he does whatever he can to make it look like Dak Prescott is worth $60 million a year. Okay, and I think with that, they go out and get CeeDee Lamb, a running mate, and they take the second fastest player in the draft. Yep, they take Matthew Golden. somebody who can really stretch the field, should hopefully open up things for CeeDee Lamb. Now, granted, they still don't have a great running game, and so a running back was also a potential option here as well. But ultimately, they take Matthew Golden, somebody who was pretty productive on in a crowded Texas receiver room, just to help Dak as much as they can.
And you think of how good Lamb has been pretty much on his own, right? So if you can get somebody to even take a little bit of attention away from him, it also opens up Golden because so much attention is given to Lamb that he could have a really good year.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right that Jerry is very egotistical. He wants to be proven that Dak is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. So, and he wants the stats to look good and pretty. So Matthew Golden should help with that. He stays in the state of Texas with the Cowboys, America's proverbial team.
Huh.
That leads us to the beloved Miami Dolphins. Cole, we did not sabotage the Dolphins. Miami has, we talked about it last week, a really strong paper team. They have lots of players look at that name when you look at their name on like the depth chart. But when they get onto the field, they play like paper champions. Miami has lots of needs, but I think just like the Bills and everyone always chase Brady, the Miami is focusing on helping somehow contain Josh Allen, who they have to beat to be able to win the division. So with that in mind and the aging Jalen Ramsey, who's probably nearing the end of his career, they go with the top cornerback available, Will Johnson, also from the University of Michigan. So his stats don't pop at you: 14 tackles, 2 INTs, 3 pass defense. But it's a case of Michigan too. Like in college, you can really prioritize one side of the field and avoid another, especially as wide as the field is. So a lot of the cornerback stats, when you look at them for the top players, they don't have much because they're simply not thrown at. But Will Johnson is right up there with Jahdae Barron as a top-rated corners. To me, Johnson fit what the Dolphins like to do, and hopefully will try to do to stop Allen and the Bills.
Good luck, Will. Not going to happen.
Yeah, but you can't blame them you can't blame the Dolphins for trying. So Miami's off the board. We're almost halfway through our mock draft, folks. We're at the 14th pick with the Indianapolis Colts. They have a quarterback battle brewing this offseason. Where do you see them going?
Quarterback battle. I mean, you're not wrong, given how streaky Anthony Richardson is. And I was considering giving them somebody. So tight end is a need for the Colts, but with Tyler Warren gone, I decided to go to another need, and that was corner. And so you took Will Johnson. So I have the Colts taking Jahdae Barron. He, unlike Will Johnson, he did have all the stats: 67 tackles, 5 interceptions, 11 passes defense. So he definitely played a lot of football. He played against some really good competition, and he should likely come in and be a starter for the Colts right away.
Yep, and kind of both corners going makes sense. Usually we'll start to run. I don't think you can go wrong with either of them personally. So to me, they're interchangeable. Barron would have been good with the Dolphins and Johnson good with the Colts. But 2 cornerbacks back-to-back taken off the board. Does that start a run? Stay tuned to find out. We are up to the Falcons now, who also have a little bit of a quarterback issue going on in their building. Still holding on to Kirk Cousins and his massive contract, even though he'll be second string barring injury. They don't need offensive help. They have a lot of weapons there. They need to focus on their defense in an insanely winnable division and a takeable division. They go with a pass rusher who does a really good job of getting quarterbacks off their target. Not the best job in getting the job finished. That is Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, 1.5 sacks last year, 4 sacks for his career. His quarterback pressures, though, are pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of like the Greg Rousseau of college football of he's right there. He just can't close the deal. But Shamar Stewart to the Falcons.
Yeah. No, I mean, I watched more Aggie football than I care to just because the people around me like Texas A&M, and he definitely, even him and his running mate.
I'm drawing a blank as well, but that guy.
Yeah, but anyways, they definitely, you're right. They got a lot of pressure and they just couldn't finish the deal. So I think a part of that was due to their DBs not being all that good. So you go to an NFL team, hopefully your corners can cover a little bit longer and maybe he can get home.
Yeah. Safety was also on the board. Here's a possibility for them, but like you said, they need you need to get home in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So they're hoping that he can actually turn those pressures into sacks. So Shamar Stewart to the Falcons, which brings us to another bird of prey, the Arizona Cardinals, who are closing out the top half of the draft at number 16. Where do you see the Redbirds going?
I mean, bird of prey, that's a loose word. Yeah, for the Cardinals. So I think just like the other bird of prey, they need help on the defensive line. You know, they haven't had a really stout pass rusher in quite a while. And one thing that Georgia is known for is their ability to produce pass rushers. So I have them taking Michael Williams out of Georgia. Again, you know, he's better productivity than Shamar Stewart. But yeah, so I think he comes in and just like with Jolly Barron, he likely starts right away. He's big, he's fast, and he should make an impact quickly.
And the Cardinals, I think, are going to be one of those sneaky teams this year that have finally put a lot of pieces together, and this is the third year under this regime.
Mm-hmm.
They've shown flashes of what they can do. So I think, yeah, and then with, like you said, pass rush, especially in that division, right? You're going to have Darnold presumably throwing the ball around. The Rams love to throw the ball, and then the Niners are all sort of creative with what they do. So they need to somehow get to the quarterback of all those teams. So the Eagles, once again, are very upset. Another defensive lineman gone from Georgia. They can't take him. But the Cardinals take another Georgia defensive player, Michael Williams, at 16, which also probably the Bengals are a little upset that we've had a little bit of run on pass rushers here because, good Lord, do the Bengals need help on defense?
Yeah.
Now, I don't think there's any way they go anything but defense, but just imagine Bengals fans losing their mind if they go, oh, we're taking
Receiver.
that or Amari and Hampton here. All right, we need a running back to help us. What about a defense? Don't worry, fans. We got you. The Bengals aren't going to ignore the offense. They spent way too much money on it in the first place this offseason. Their defense is awful last year. They replaced their coordinator, who everyone loved 2 years ago. All of a sudden, he can't do anything. They're going safety. They got rid of their safeties in the last 2 years, Simmons and Bates. And look what happened. Their defense turned and went into the tank. So they start to go back to the board. You get Nick Emenwari, the safety out of South Carolina.
Yeah, no, I think this is a good value pick for them. I mean, he's the best safety available, a position of need. Yeah.
And just when I think of when the Bengals were when they went to the Super Bowl, like they had a strong back end of their secondary. And then they're like, oh, like it seems like there's a devaluation of safeties kind of across the board lately. And I think they saw, oh, this is what happens when we don't have good safeties. And teams find that out once, like a couple years ago when Hyde got hurt and Poyer was crap. We found out what it was like to not have good safeties again after being spoiled by them for years.
Yep.
So like you said, like when you're in the 17th pick and you can get the best player in the draft at a position of need, that's a pretty solid deal there. So the Bengals taking Nick Emenwari off the board. bringing us to the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, well, Seattle, they had a couple of big additions, a couple, key losses, bringing on Sam Darnold, but losing DK Metcalf and Geno Smith. And so I think the Seattle goes and they replace DK Metcalf and they take the second best receiver in the draft with Ted McMillan.
You don't want to try to pronounce the whole name?
That's all right.
I wouldn't try it either. I call him Ted.
Yeah. So 1,300 yards, 80 receptions, eight touchdowns. Easily the best receiver in the Big 12. I think, anyways. I mean, Travis Hunter aside. Because Travis at least had Shedeur Sanders throw him the football. Raise your hand if you can name the quarterback for what?
Nope, I can't name him.
Yeah, Arizona. So Tet goes, gives Darnold the best chance for success. Granted, Jackson Smith is not Justin Jefferson, and this guy is not going to be Jordan Addison, or probably isn't going to be. But at the very least, I think they gambled. Seattle did on signing Sam to such a big deal. So at least now they pull a Jerry and they do the best that they can to get the most out of their high-price quarterback.
And Tet's not going to be asked to do it, like you said. They have JSN, who had a breakout year in his second year.
Mm-hmm.
If Cooper Kupp can stay healthy and be 80% of what he used to be,
I forgot about him.
He doesn't have to be even the top two, so he can kind of go in and play the slot, maybe move him around. But that three-headed wide receiver room is pretty solid with Tet, Cooper, and JSN. So Darnold, like you said, is going to have his best chance to replicate what he did last year. So Ted McMillan off the board to the Seahawks, which brings us to the start of the playoff teams now. We are done with the proverbial lottery of the draft. We are up to the teams that actually did something last year and made the playoffs. We have the division-winning Tampa Bay Bucks on the board now at 19. Or are they? This is my first trade of the draft. Tampa Bay had the phone ring. We talked earlier about the Saints having a quarterback issue, the Carr being injured, and possibly who knows what after that. It's the Saints calling the Bucks. And another in-division trade like we saw earlier. The Saints, they have a quarterback in mind. They trade up and get Jackson Dart, quarterback out of Ole Miss. Some people are really high on Jackson Dart. Almost a 70% completion percentage, for almost 4,300 yards, 29 touchdowns in the SEC. Jackson Dart to the Saints. Thoughts, Dr. Joe?
I love this. I mean, I think a lot of people have him mocked at the Saints first, pick at 9, and frankly now with Carr getting hurt, I think he got hurt after you and I did this pick.
Yeah.
So that seems like almost a guarantee. And I think when it's all said and done, that Dart is going to be the best quarterback in this draft. I mean, having Kiffin as your coordinator, playing in a hard conference, being highly accurate, really productive. I really like Dart a lot. So if the Saints can get him at 19, that would be phenomenal. I don't think he'll last. I mean, frankly, I think he'll likely be gone in the top 10. I really like this pick.
And how much of a curveball would that throw the draft of having a third quarterback in the top 10? Quarterback draft, everyone looks at as kind of not strong, but still quarterbacks drive it. There's going to be competition for moving up for Dart. I think the Steelers are there because who knows what's happening with Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
Going to be Dart. Ainsley is not wrong. Gardner Minshew 2.0 here in Jackson Dart.
Quarterback competition in Kansas City, bub.
But Kellen Moore probably going to want to have his own guy. Spencer Rattler probably doesn't move the needle for him So quarterbacks, like earlier in the first trade, quarterbacks driving the trade market. That brings us into the 20s. The Broncos, a surprising playoff team last year with first-year quarterback Bo Nix. What do you have them doing in year 2 for him?
Well, the Broncos have been, at least earlier last week, I saw a few things, or they were calling the Bills about James Cook. I don't think that they go with Cook. I think they take the second best running back on the board. There goes my dryer. And they take Omarion Hampton, who, not quite as productive as Ginty, but highly productive. He'll be able to take some pressure off of Bo Nix, because even though Bo Nix played well and looked really good, right, he's still going to be a second-year player, and last thing you really want is any sort of regression. So, yeah, I have them taking Hampton here.
Now, when you think back to when Peyton was at his best, he had good running backs.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. They have good receivers already. Their defense was top 5 in the league last year with a lot of young players. So Denver kind of has the luxury of, like, maybe it might be what's considered a luxury pick, right? Like when the Bills took Willis McGahee back and they're like, man, do they really need him? Well, I think the Broncos can really do that, and he's going to help the offense a lot. So good pick there for Denver in the Sean Payton, which also I think angers the Steelers. I think he would have been an option for them here as well to replace Najee Harris.
Right.
So also makes a lot of sense. That brings us to the Steelers, who are still in quarterback limbo, waiting for Aaron Rodgers to emerge from his darkness retreat to figure out what he's going to do. And a curveball thrown not only to the Saints, but the Steelers. Now they're not probably the only quarterback team competing for Rodgers' services. I would have to imagine they're going to place phone calls to his camp. So as he continues to make everyone wait, the Steelers are sitting on the board at 21. Jalen Milroe is a possibility. I think he's going to sneak into the first round at some point, but not here. The Steelers are going to do what they usually do. They're going to go to the big uglies. They're going to go defense. Casey Hayward isn't getting any younger, as good as he is. So they start looking at the future, and they draft Derek Harmon, the big tackle out of Oregon, 45 tackles, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles for the big man.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, some of these guys, right, who have just been, consistent, like Cam Hayward, it's hard to think of life after them. But just like, I think this is Calais Campbell's last year. Cam Hayward doesn't have, I think, many elite years left in him. So it's better to go and draft his replacement now, so he can spend a couple of years learning from him.
Yep. So Harmon to the Steelers in a very Steelers-esque move. We bring to the Chargers under Harbaugh. Another playoff team up in the first year, 3 out of the AFC West, but first year under Harbaugh made it to the playoffs. But as the Chargers tend to do, they got absolutely wrecked in the playoffs. Where do you see the Chargers going to try to prevent that from happening this year?
Well, I think Harbaugh tries to undo something that was done the year before him. And he tries to eliminate drops, in particular drops that were caused by Johnston, a dude that I really liked coming out of college, but he just cannot catch the football. So I think they go and they get Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, someone who has great hands. He was a reliable target for Howard. I don't believe he had very many drops, and I think you pair him with Lad McConkey and you give Herbert 2 solid receivers that at the very least he can count on. Herbert is accurate. He throws a nice ball, but it doesn't matter if it hits your receiver in the hands and he drops it. So I think this is Johnson's probably his last year as a Charger, and Emeka is his replacement.
Yeah, for you think of all the great wide receivers in the last 10 years who come out of Ohio State, Egbuka has the most catches out of all of them coming out of Ohio State.
I didn't know that.
You think of Chris Olave, Wilson, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. last year, but Egbuka has the most career receptions at Ohio State University. So somebody who just like he was always outshined by bigger names, but when it was crunch time, Egbuka was one of those guys like kind of like Amon-Ra, like they go to him when they need to, and he shows up. So like you said, replacing Johnston, kind of you're saying it's important to catch a ball at receiver. Kind of in the job description. So Harbaugh isn't going to stand for that anymore. Egbuka to the Chargers, which brings us to the Packers. Somebody, when we were doing this mock draft, I kind of skipped them for 2 picks, but luckily then nobody took who I wanted to pick. It's happened before, right? Like the Vikings 2 years in a row had people running up in front of them because they didn't submit a pick at the draft. Call me Dennis Green. I'm doing that as well. The Packers, they could go wide receiver. There's been they're I don't even know what's called their own. They don't have owners. Whoever's in charge, like their CEO, has talked about needing more number one receiver than all like the groups of 2s and 3s they have. But at this point, I don't. After Egbuka's off the board, I don't see anybody fitting that bill. Jair Alexander seems to be nearing the end of his tenure in Green Bay, so kind of the theme of the last few picks. They start looking at the future, and they take Siobhan Ravel, cornerback out of ECU, injured last year.
Single-digit tackles.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if he fell to the Bills because if he wasn't hurt, I think he'd be right up there with Barron and Wilson. But his injury last year, obviously, a little bit of a red flag there. But at this point, ACLs are like Tommy John. Like people come back from them pretty easily as compared in the past.
Right.
So Green Bay, I think, gets a steal here, a player that, if healthy, probably is a top half of the draft type of player. They get him in the 20s at 23. Packers go defense.
Nice. And you mentioned ACL, and ACLs are important. Structurally, they're important. And when quarterback tears them, not good. And so I think the Vikings, they try to prevent what happened to J.J. McCarthy in that his ACL tore last year. And so I think they go offensive line and they take Tyler Booker, someone who can keep him upright, keep the other ACL intact. And so the Vikings actually have an opportunity to see what they have in McCarthy. It's hard to imagine they'll win 13 games like they did last year, but who knows? They have great receivers. Aaron Jones played well, and so it all starts in the trenches and with Vikings with Tyler Booker.
And he's pretty much regarded as the best guard in the draft too. So if we talk about getting the best player to position at a position of need, Vikings striking at me right. They let go of Bradbury this year, so he's gone. So getting somebody with of this caliber is a pretty good get for the Vikings. Which brings us to the Texans, your neck of the woods, kind of. A team I can't stand really because I don't know. I just don't like them. Their safety's real dirty. But anyway, if we get beyond that, we talk about offensive line. Their offensive line was terrible last year, and they've gotten rid of players. They traded away Laramie Tunstall. They got traded another guard. So they need help on offense. Booker would have been the pick there. He's gone. They go to a school that is notorious for developing offensive linemen. That's right. They go to North Dakota State University. Gray Zabel, Cody Maw a few years ago. Remember in the no front teeth type thing out of NDSU as well.
Yeah.
His blocking grades from PFF, 86.5 in running, 93.1 in pass blocking, tackle allowed 4. There'll be a little bit of a learning curve going to the NFL like there is for all kind of lower class players, but a guy who has tremendous upside and a position of raise able.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. I think it's between offensive line and receiver with all their guys getting, hurt throughout the year. But you're right. If CJ Stroud can't stay upright, well, then it doesn't matter who your receivers are. their defense is solid. So this pick makes a lot of sense.
All right. I'm here to make sense. That brings us to the Rams, who have had an interesting offseason. They had some drama with Stafford to start things off. They let him kind of seek a trade elsewhere, which turned out like they were saying, hey, go see what deal you can get and we'll kind of match it type thing. Cooper Kupp, their star receiver, MVP of the Super Bowl, the Triple Crown from 4 years ago as a receiver, went to the division rival Seahawks. They brought in Devontae Adams to do that, replace him. So where do you see them going? Are they going on offense or continuing to build that young defense?
I think their offense is pretty solid. You didn't mention Kyren Williams, but he's a solid running back, both carrying it and catching it. So the offense is good, but I think they still need help in the middle of the defense. And so, again, we talked with the first safety going off the board for the Bengals. Well, the first true linebacker is going to go off the board here with Giad Campbell, a guy who, had he not had surgery before the combine, likely would have gone a little bit higher. So I think this is going to be a really good pick for the Rams, somebody that they could use to help anchor the center of the defense, but a value pick here at 26.
Big value. I think they would be ecstatic for him, and he'd be somebody, if he falls this far, I think you'd have people trading up to get. And you think of all they did last year on the defensive line, now they get a young stud linebacker. They're building all levels of their defense with young players, which makes sense because they have to spend so much money on offense. Having cost-controlled defensive players makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So the Rams, a team that I think probably played the Eagles the hardest out of everyone in the playoffs last year, had a chance to win it at the end and continuing to improve their team. So I think they're an underrated contender to reach the Super Bowl this year.
Yep.
Moving on, speaking of teams that could have made the Super Bowl that ran into a buzzsaw, the Ravens. Sorry, Ravens fans. 0-2 against Josh in the playoffs. They're one of the teams that they could go anywhere.
Yeah.
They're a team that is like Miami is great, great on paper, but for the most part, they also bring that to the field. So they have the luxury of taking who is the best player available, I think, right now on the board. And even though they have Hamilton, an all-pro safety, you need two. So they're going to make a position of strength even stronger and go Malachi Starks. A lot of people call the safeties Enamori and Starks 1A, 1B. They get Starks out of Georgia. Philly's mad again. To go along with Hamilton and make a solid defense even better.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's definitely a position of need because even though their defense, it seemed solid at times, I mean, they're giving up big plays in the pass game was definitely one of their major weaknesses, at least in the first half of the season. So this smart pick.
Right. That leads us to a team that also had a very disappointing thud to their season, Detroit, who didn't even make it back to the championship game. What do you have them doing to try to get back to that stage this year?
Well, when Aiden Hutchinson went down, the Lions desperately tried to replace his productivity as a pass rusher. They couldn't do it, so he should come back healthy and ready to go. But I think they load up on pass rushers, in case an injury happens again. Their offense is good; they don't really need any help there. Corner could have been a potential here, but I think they go with Mike Green out of Marshall. Big, fast, athletic, had a ton of productivity. You hope he can recapitulate that, and the NFL, likely didn't go against the strongest competition, but all the physical tools are there, and he should be able to learn a lot from the defensive line room for the Lions.
And even before Hutchinson got hurt, he was getting so much attention because he was kind of their only threat.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about productivity. Yes, it was at Marshall, but he still had 17 sacks, 23 tackles for loss, and 84 tackles. that's still great production no matter what level you're playing at. Kind of the opposite of Shamar Stewart, who couldn't close the deal. He's making plays in the backfield consistently, and he's going to a team that, based on what we've seen from Hutchinson's videos, he looks like he'll be back full strength. He's going to get chances to make plays. So if this happens, that would be my sleeper pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year going to Detroit. That we're getting to the upper echelon of teams now. We are now at the championship game losers, starting with Washington, who had a season that nobody saw coming, all the way to the NFC Championship, where they got pummeled by the train that was the Philadelphia Eagles, but all arrows are pointing upwards for them. In our description of the show, I said there was maybe some heat. Dr. Dungan was not happy with my pick here for the Washington Commanders. It's somebody him and I have talked about the Bills wanting, and I want him as well to go to the Bills, but I had to do what's best for Washington. Last year, they traded for Lattimore, who he was all right, but they needed more cornerback help. So they go to Maxwell Hairston from one of your former employees, the University of Kentucky. Maxwell Hairston, the speedster cornerback, 4 passes defense, 1 INT, 19 tackles for Kentucky last year, going to the Commanders.
Yeah, no, if they get him, that'd be a great pick. But boy, yeah, you're right. How does I was legit annoyed. I was like, man, like what a scumbag. So yeah, no, it's a good pick for Washington.
And that's why doing mock drafts is way better with more than just yourself. Because if it was just you, you'd be like, all right, Harrison's going to fall to me in Buffalo. Right? But like more people you have, the more mind, like the less likely it is to make things the way you want them.
Yeah.
So Maxwell Hairston, one spot before the Bills, which puts the Bills on the clock. Or are they?
You're such an idiot. No, they're not on the clock because after that, Brandon Beane was pissed. He's like, you know what? There's nobody else that I want in the first round. Browns are calling because the Browns, they're idiots. And so, and frankly, this is something that I can legitimately see the Browns doing. So the Bills trade back with the Browns because they're not moving far. It's sort of like the trade with Kansas City last year. They didn't go far. So the Browns are on the clock. They're not in love with Deshaun Watson. All the great quarterbacks are gone, but there's one that I think has a lot of potential. I would lump him in with an Anthony Richardson-esque type quarterback. Is crazy athletic, has some accuracy concerns, but yeah, Jalen Milroe. Except for Anthony Richardson, he went 4th overall. Milroe goes 30th, and so get him there, sit behind that whole fleet of quarterbacks that they have there in Cleveland, and potentially after a year or two, maybe he's ready to step up and take some snaps. So Browns get him before the Steelers potentially can and take Milroe.
Like you said, Cleveland doing this, I think, is realistic. The Bills, depending on who's left, would be a realistic being shown, hey, I'm willing to trade out of the first for a little bit of a drop up and more picks.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting you compared him to Anthony Richardson. Milroe has so much more game experience than AR. Like AR had so little game experience coming out. So Milroe's getting, I think, a bad rap. If you look at him as a day one starter, you're going to be disappointed.
Correct.
But if you take the time to maybe do what the Packers did with Jordan Love and sit him for a few years and let him develop and learn, and then when he's ready, take over, we might look back and say, man, that's a steal of the draft.
But you said, they have to do something smart, and that is not the Browns' MO. I mean, unfortunately for Milroe, if he goes here, I think Jimmy Haslam will be impatient and he'll try to throw him out there. But you're right. He is a dude that has a ton of tools. Now, granted, one thing that I will say, even though he has more game experience, he didn't play all that well with the elite receivers that Alabama has. So it's sort of a, trade off there. But yeah, you're right. I can totally see happening.
So the Browns, with the trade, our final one of the mock draft, leads us to the Super Bowl teams and the losers of the Super Bowl, the Kansas City Chiefs. Mahomes has lost 2 Super Bowls. Could have easily lost more than that.
Josh hasn't lost any.
That is accurate. Um, that should be a topic for another show. Is like Mahomes getting wins when he plays blah, and then Josh losing when he plays amazing. But that's a topic for another day, which we got a lot of time to do. Kansas City, when we talk about smart, as much as like I just like how they beat us, Kansas City's a smart team in terms of how they build their team. When they lost to the Buccaneers a few years ago, they realized, man, our offensive line is terrible. They went out and signed people. It didn't end up being the greatest, but they used the resources to try to make it better. Why did the Chiefs lose again? Their offensive line got destroyed. They were playing a guard at tackle. That's how bad their tackles were. Mm-hmm. So at this point, they're going to the big men. They're going to take another swing. They're going to take Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. 4 career sacks allowed for the big man. A lot of Texas players going in the first round, but Kansas City's going to take a swing. Like, he might have a little learning curve, but it can't be much worse than their tackles who can't stay in the stance or 8 yards off the line of scrimmage.
Juwan Taylor.
Yeah, he's terrible. But Andy Reid realized what the weakness is, and they're going to try to fix it and draft him.
I mean, that, and they traded their best offensive lineman too.
To the Bears, who actually did something smart.
Yeah. I mean, that's a trade that made zero sense to me. It was already a position of weakness, and you get rid of your best one.
Yeah, and they signed the backup for the Niners, their tackle to start. That's a lot of projection there, somebody who's never really played.
Yeah. But so, again, this pick, I frankly don't see how it – I don't see a world that Kansas City does not draft an offensive lineman in the first round.
And I listen to Moving Chains, and they do mock drafts every Friday. Every draft they've had the Chiefs moving up to get a tackle before all of them move away.
Yeah.
Kansas City's shown, like, hey, if they find somebody they love, like maybe they want to get Booker to play guard to replace Thuney, I don't know. But them moving up, I would not be surprised at that.
Who would trade up for the Kansas City Chiefs? I mean, that makes no sense.
Trade back with them? Yeah, well, we would, but we're too close to them.
I'm kidding, Lawrence.
But it would be us. But it makes no sense for like that'd be funny if we swap spots with them. Hey, take this guy. But Calvin Banks, that brings us to not the last pick. We do have a bonus one after this, but last pick of the first round. The world champion Philadelphia Eagles, who Dr. Duncan had to close out the first round. Who do you have the champion Eagles take?
I mean, as Philly has done the last few years, they just take a position of need and or frankly, the best available. Their defense is solid, really, really good. Their offense, I mean, receivers, great. Running back, great. Quarterback, above average. But tight end is one where I think that they could get some improvement on. And so there's the second best tight end available, Colston Loveland, big guy, 6'6", not that much of a drop off from Tyler Warren. Mm-hmm. And so I think he'd make a really big impact with Philly and make a good offense or a great offense even better.
Yeah, like they're kind of, to me, it's like the Ravens they can go whatever, and like you said, best player on the board. And they always seem to draft players a couple years before they're ready to replace somebody else.
Right.
So makes a lot of sense. Another weapon for that insanely talented Eagles offense. That ends the first round, but we are going to give the Bills pick. Since they traded with Cleveland and have the 33rd overall pick, we're going to skip the proverbial gap in between round 1 and 2 and jump right to it like the NFL should. We're not going to have a night gap. So we have the Browns, who are at 33, who they made the trade with the Bills, as Duncan said earlier, for Jalen Milroe. The Bills could go a lot of ways here. If there's a cornerback they liked here, wide receiver, I think a possibility. But I think they're going defensive line. They're going to continue to take a swing at it till they get it right. I was torn between 2 players. Grant from Michigan, the D tackle, and then The guy I'm picking, I don't think I told you who I'm picking actually yet.
I can see it.
Oh, you can see. Oh, here it goes. Donovan Izuruwaku out of Boston College, somebody again who has production. Hoping that translates to the NFL. I've seen a lot of mocks where they have us drafting him outright at 30.
Yep.
Would I hate it? No. At least it's somebody who has production. But our track record of drafting defensive linemen and them underperforming just worries me.
Yeah. It's well. First of all, the Word document you sent me has all of the picks in it, so I knew when I opened it. And
I don't remember if I added it or not.
And second, I'm with you. Like, this is going to be one of those things where we're not going to know whether or not he pans out for 2 or 3 years. I'm with you. I hope so, but it's just more like at this point, it seems like this very nebulous area where there doesn't feel like there's a true impact player available, at least at the positions that we need. But it's a pick that makes sense.
And that's why this, at least you're drafting somebody who did something in college. You're not drafting for potential. Like, oh, look what he could be. It's somebody who had 80 tackles, 16 and a half sacks, 3 forced fumbles last year. Yes, Boston College isn't playing the best teams, but he also doesn't have the best talent around him. So I'm sure he was like a focus of offensive coordinators and systems, and he still put up those numbers. So like you said, at this point in the draft, you're willing to take a chance. I wouldn't be mad if they drafted him unless like Noel's on the board or something. Like then I'll be mad. But with all the cornerbacks gone, not any receivers I really love at this point, I'd be okay with this.
Yeah. Nick Skirton, that's the other
Baggy.
That's been out of Texas A&M, and he is the definition of drafting for potential. So yeah, this, as you said, at least this is someone who's done something, who's shown that he can get to the quarterback.
But that does wrap our draft. Before we close it out, your thoughts on like maybe somebody that you think will go in the first, have in there somebody who maybe you think might fall out. Just thoughts on that quick.
Of the first round or fall out?
Like maybe somebody we had at the end, like you could see falling out of the first round.
I think Jalen Milroe is obviously a toss up, but outside of him, Calvin Banks, if the Chiefs don't take him, then he might not be there. And my pick at 22, the Amike. I've seen plenty of mocks where he's landed early in the second round.
Yeah.
So I think if the Chargers don't take him at 22, then he likely falls into the early second round.
Yeah, Buka could fall there for sure. I could possibly see at the end of the first a running back going. Travion Henderson, Judkins, of people who want to get that extra year out of the contract, especially at a position like that where generally you're not going to give somebody a big second contract.
Right.
Somebody who like maybe if the Browns need it, like, oh, they don't make the trade for Milroe, like, oh, we need a running back because Chubb's knee keeps getting wrecked. And we can get 5 years of cost control out of that. That's pretty good. So I think one of those two could happen. But I think by the time Thursday night's first round is done, you're going to see us at like 90% accuracy of players, not necessarily where they're going, but I think we have a pretty good grasp of who the first round players are. And then obviously the order is impossible to predict.
Let me ask you this. So if the Raiders don't, and I'm with you, most everyone have them taking Ginty, but say the Raiders don't take Ginty, it means they trade for Cook.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I'd be fine trading him. Then we take one of the Ohio State backs with our second round pick. One of our second round picks.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cook, if they want to get somebody who's proven, and then we could trade Mad Max for cook straight up, I'd also take that.
Right.
But that is our mock draft, ladies and gentlemen, our longest show by far. We're at 1 hour and 10 minutes. We thank you all. Hope you enjoyed it. We had fun doing it, as always. You can now find us. We got our YouTube. You can find this if you want to rewatch it with the video. We have, we're on the Spotify app as well, which thankfully they show video as well. So you'll be able to watch it on there. The Apple iPod network, we are on there as well. So follow us across the board. For Dr. Duncan, I am Lawrence Foster at SNS Bills Talk, and we say,
Go
Go
Bills.
Bills.